In this video I will address the original sin of the Church of Intersectionality. You hear a lot of talk about the unconscious bias, especially in corporate America. It is a wild assumption that is based on little to no evidence. In fact, the argument is being presented as people's assumptions of what the unconscious mind is capable of and the biases it holds, which is somehow heretical. So allow me to present the argument of what unconscious bias is from the feminist perspective.
Unconscious biases are simply our unintended people preferences. They are formed by our socialization, our personal experiences, and the representations of different groups in the media. These experiences act as social filters in which we make assessments and judgments of people around us. Research tells us that human beings have a natural tendency to place individuals into social categories. These categories are often based on visual cues such as gender, cultural background, age, height, or body size. We also categorize based on social background, job roles, religious identity, or political affiliation. The unconscious brain uses associations based on social categories to develop biases.
As you can see from the clip, the core of intersectional sin is this claim that the unconscious bias drives social, racial attitudes and puts everyone in a situation which denigrates the minorities of our species. There wasn't really a claim that the straight white male was at the core of this issue. However, from here we have an original sin, the unconscious mind dictating your racism. You are a racist before you realize you even had the racist thought. The problem with this premise lies in starting with the conclusion and working backwards toward the theory. Those that believe the unconscious bias is the root of all racism and that it's a socialization of our species that creates racial attitudes are giving you a half-truth. It's the same concept of the Christians, the Jews, the Muslims, and every other religion out there that claim that you start out sick and you must be made to be well. But in this case, you don't start with the taint of your sinful ancestors eating from the tree of knowledge. You aren't born from your previous caste into the current one, where you were made to be a servant of those who were born into power. You are born with a system that teaches you to be a racist, bigot, homophobe, xenophobe, Islamophobe, and every other slanderous thing they can throw at you. You were born to believe that anyone different from you is evil. The cure is intersectional feminism and psychological treatment at the hands of those that know better than you. The same ones that tell you that you have these biases and you just don't know it yet. As the Jesus meme says, "Let me in so I can save you from what I'll do to you if you don't let me in." The reality of the situation has the same nature as the claim of sin. It is an imaginary belief structured around human behaviors which we all have. Yet unlike original sin, the unconscious mind is something we really can study. The reality of the unconscious mind is that there's a few opposing theories. This means there is no proven theory in the area of the unconscious, and only speculation. The worst part of the unknown for the human mind is when we try to work backwards from what we believe to be true to define the unknown. The religious do this all the time when they start with the assumption that God is real and then deduce from this presupposition everything else that aligns with their belief. The result in the Christian faith, for example, is the conclusion that the universe is designed and God designed it. They come up with theories and claims at the center of all their conclusions, but their conclusion has yet to be proven. So in essence, their entire worldview is based on their belief that God is real. When you can prove that their God is not real, the rest of their conclusions about the world crumble because of the presupposition starting false. The split between theories of the unconscious have multiple angles. In the paper entitled The Unconscious Mind, we split between three theories of what unconsciousness, or subconsciousness if you prefer, actually is and how it operates. To quote, "Contemporary perspectives of the unconscious mind are remarkably varied. In cognitive psychology, unconscious information processes has been equated with subliminal information processing, which raises the question, how good is the mind at extracting meaning from stimuli of which it is not consciously aware? Because subliminal strength stimuli are relatively weak and of low intensity by definition, the mental processes they drive are necessarily minimal and unsophisticated. And so these studies have led to the conclusion that the powers of the unconscious mind are limited and that the unconsciousness is rather dumb. Social psychology has an approach of the unconscious mind from a different angle. Their traditional focus has been on the mental processes of which the individual is unaware, not the stimuli of which one is unaware. There has been much research on the extent of which people are unaware of the important influences on their judgment and decision of the reasons for their behavior. This research, in contrast with cognitive psychology tradition, has led to the view that the unconscious mind is pervasive, powerful influence over higher mental processes. As you can see from these two views, one centers around cognition, our process of knowing and perceiving the world around us. The other one relies on social interaction. You constantly hear from the intersectional feminist belief that something that they dislike is a social construct. Their original sin depends on the social constructions and belief to be true. Just like all of the religions, there has to be a rejection of something that defies your core conclusion. Your presupposition can be destroyed by the beast of reason. Intersectionality faces the same problem that intelligent design from Christians faces when claiming social constructs. Evolution is a fact. Quoting the article again, this expanded and enhanced view of the unconsciousness is also more compatible with the theory and evidence in the field of evolutionary biology than the subliminal-only view of cognitive psychology. As did Darwin and Freud, evolutionary biologists also think of the unconsciousness much more in terms of unintentional actions rather than awareness of stimuli. In his seminal work, The Selfish Gene, Dawkins noted the awe-inspiring and intelligent designs in nature that arose merely through blind natural selection. He called nature the blind watchmaker, the unconscious watchmaker, because there was no conscious, intentionally guided hand in producing these intelligent designs. Cognizant with these basic assumptions in natural sciences, social cognition research over the past 25 years, as of the article stating it was written in 2008, has produced a stream of surprising findings regarding the complex judgmental and behavioral phenomena that operates outside of awareness. Because the findings did not make sense given the dumb unconsciousness perspective of psychological sciences in the mainstream, we had to look outside of psychology to understand them and their implications for the human mind. Happily, when placed in the broader context of natural sciences, especially evolutionary biology, the widespread discoveries of sophisticated unconscious behavior guided systems not only made sense, they turned out to have been predicted on priori grounds. This paper demonstrates the foundation of evolutionary psychology, where we apply the facts of evolution with our research into the mind to understand the brain is just another organ with functions that we can understand if we remember that we are an evolved species. Intersectionality must then reject evolution to keep its conclusions and subsequential assumptions true. The fact that we are an evolved species is undeniable. So why would intersectionality maintain their belief in unconscious bias when it does not align with the truth of evolution? The answer can only be that they have become a religion. Only religious thinking rejects grounded scientific facts, and evolution is the most compelling foundational fact that has ever been discovered because of its far-reaching implications across nearly every discipline. Knowing that intersectional religion flat out rejects evolution in favor of social constructs for their original sin of unconscious bias, then what can we say to these people that believe that these biases exist and that we are racist, bigot, homophobes because of it? Whatever your approach is, it's important to start from the premise of truth. Evolutionary psychology has a theory which aligns with the truth of evolution that I think is best articulated by Dr. Michael Kaku. In his book, The Future of the Mind, he puts forth a table that outlines 4 distinct levels of consciousness as it associates with 3 distinct categories along with brain development. At level 0, we have plants. They react to environmental stimuli but lack any brain structure. They're completely reactionary to their environment, to light, to heat, to cold. At level 1, we have reptiles. They are spatially aware but also react to environmental stimuli. They have at least a brainstem. The reactionary stimuli of lizards, for example, they being cold-blooded species, react to the environment when it's hot and cold. At level 2, we have mammals. They are capable of social interaction, and everything in the previous 2 levels as well. They also have developed a limbic system. Mammals do react to their environmental stimuli, for example, bears hibernate in the winter, but they are also capable of social interactions. They have developed at least a next level experience in their cognitive behaviors. Finally, we have level 3, and the most obvious ones is the humans. We have the ability to be temporally aware, meaning that we have a concept of time, especially the ability to know the finite reality of our own lifespan. We are also one of the few species that have developed the prefrontal cortex. If we are an evolved species, then we should know that evolution tends to carry forward and not remove unnecessary data with it. We still grow wisdom teeth despite our jaw not being big enough to keep them. We have numerous oddities in our physiology that don't make sense unless you walk backwards in time through evolution to discover our ancestors carried it forward, and so we have the same complications. Our mind is not separate from evolution. We carried forward all the processing capabilities that we developed as we evolved. The unconscious mind would then have to be a product of our evolutionary development. The way Dr. Kaku outlines his levels of consciousness outlines perfectly with how the unconscious would operate given the truth of evolution. The primitive and reactionary part of our brain is the unconscious. It connects with and is a part of a greater system, or becomes rather, who we are. To claim that the unconscious bias exists is to lie about evolution and claim that this primitive and completely reactionary part of our brain is capable of social cognitive behavior. The problem for intersectionality's original sin lies within its premise. A bias is a prejudice in favor of or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in a way that's considered to be unfair. A prejudice is a preconceived opinion that is not based on reason or actual experience. Opinions form in the conscious mind because the unconscious mind is a reactionary system that operates at all times in the present. It cannot think forward. It cannot predict models. It can only react to stimuli, and even then, it's typically carnal in nature. The way I explain the unconsciousness is similar to the way it's broken down in Dr. Kaku's book. The unconsciousness is your flight or fight response. It is your attractive or unattractive reaction to people around you, a constant game of smash or pass played out in your mind. It cannot think forward. It is not capable of forming opinions. But like everything else, your mind is a multi-layered system that is complex and constantly changing. Your consciousness picks up on the cues your unconscious gives. Your unconscious bias is a myth, an original sin developed by those that reject the idea that we have evolved minds. It is not capable of the agency intersectionality attempts to give it. Your biases may be formed by your knee-jerk reactions, but they would have to be coupled with indoctrinated beliefs and sometimes reasoned positions. I see no problem in recognizing the role our unconscious mind plays in our social behaviors. I have a huge problem with denying reality to demonize people in the name of one's belief based on false assumptions that the unconscious is capable of bias. In conclusion, I would like to note that the unconscious mind is not capable of bias. Our biases are formed opinions, and to assume that they are anything other than that is to try and claim an original sin to which we are unaware we even have. This claim that we're all racist, bigot, homophobes because of unconscious bias, these thoughts that we don't even realize we have before they have them. This bizarre attempt to create a thought crime in order to control us is a typical move for those that wish to be in power and be in control. The unconscious bias claim is a falsehood because your unconsciousness is not capable of forming biases.
The class is finished today.